Tonight, a journey into the wordy world of Irish rock music. Hello, tonight we look at Irish rock music, which in its various manifestations has achieved both commercial success and great critical acclaim throughout the world. This year we've witnessed the phenomenon of Sinead. In previous years we've seen U2 become one of the most successful bands ever, and in the last 25 years we've seen Van Morrison become one of the most influential artists in contemporary music. Is there something beyond nationality that connects these and other Irish artists? The cultural history of Ireland seems to suggest so. In the past, this small island on the western edge of Europe, with less than half the population of London, has had a reputation for turning out some of the world's best writers, from Wilde through Yeats and Shaw to Joyce and Beckett. Now that preeminence is showing itself in popular music, they claim, with Irish songwriters and bands producing work that dares to be serious and meaningful in a pop world that often likes to revel in superficiality and impermanence. In Peter Lydon's film, which features a revealing interview between Van Morrison and Bob Geldof, we hear from Bono of U2, Sinead O'Connor, the Pogues and others, and with them we explore the factors which have helped shape the sound and content of Irish rock music.
How would you characterize your relationship with your country of origin?
It's when I only started to sort of look at it from a conscious angle that I really understood what I was actually writing.
Yeah.
You know, myself, and then I saw that there was a pattern. You know, when you look at it, you see a definite pattern. You know, initially it was unconscious, you know, the references to, say, you know, Belfast, Dublin, or whatever, or the sadness or the loss and all that stuff was unconscious.
Well, what is that? What is it that called you back to that? Why was it only that stuff could make you articulate who you were?
I saw what I was. You know, I was an Irish writer, so then I proceeded from there.
It's like a child that has, if you think of Ireland as an adult, when it was a child, its set of experiences were like that, and now that it's an adult, it remembers them at the back of its mind. It doesn't know exactly what it is it's remembering or what it is it's trying to express, particularly, but it's in there.
I mean, when you think about it, the forefathers of what Joyce called the upstart republic were all poets and madmen and dramatists. It's actually woven into the very fabric of the Irish Free State as drama and poetry, and you looked up to the poets. Certainly I did growing up, because we were the best in the world at that. We weren't the best in the world at building bridges, say. You know, we weren't the best in the world at sending people to the moon. We were great writers.
They're just songs about normal, everyday, realistic sort of events. The funny side of things, the sad side of things, you know. Some of them are angry, some of them are happy, some of them are, you know, dirty. Some of them are celebrate the joys of drink or whatever, you know. Some of them are a celebration of, they're all a celebration of how good it is to be alive, apart from the ones which are a lament about how bad it is being dead, you know.
It seems to me now that pop music becomes only relevant when you bring to it something of your own nature or who you are. And it's been notoriously lacking in pop music of late. And people have scanned the world looking for meaning and passion in this music. And for some reason, the Irish happen to be able, at a certain time, to provide that. And it seemed to have worked in a universal sense.
Good evening once again, everybody. Welcome to the programme. Dave Fanning till 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, I just come back from the Point Depot from Sinead O'Connor's triumphant homecoming gig. We'll have a review of that later on in the programme. And we'll also be taking a look at the long-awaited second album from Dublin band Something Happens. First song I'm going to play in the programme tonight actually is Sinead O'Connor, and the first time we actually saw her perform this was with Christy Moore at the Mandela gig about a year or two ago. So I'm Stretched on Your Grave, and it's from the album, the second one that is, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got.
I'm Stretched on Your Grave is a translation of a 14th century anonymous Irish poem. And the Irish for it is Táime Sínte ar do Huama. Táime Sínte, I am Sínte, stretched on your grave. And there was a tradition in this country when a loved one died or passed away, that there would be a specific grieving period after the person's death, and that the bereaved person would go and sit on the gravestone and perhaps sing or play an instrument, or just be there and, you know, meditate a little on the passing of the loved one.
When my family thinks I'm safe in my bed, from night until morning I'm stretched at your head, calling out to the air with tears hot and wild, my grief for the girl that I loved as a child.
Poems in this country have a great musicality in them. It's innate in the poems and in the old Irish lyrics. A lot of them were written almost as songs. There is music in them.
Priests and the friars approach me in dread, because I still love you, my love, and you're dead. And still would be your shelter through rain and through storm, and with you in the cold grave I cannot sleep warm.
Do you remember the night we were lost? In the shade of the blackthorn and the chill of the frost. Thanks be to Jesus we did what was right, and your maidenhead still is your pillar of light.
Sinead O'Connor sings I'm Stretched on Your Grave, and can only sing I am Stretched on Your Grave in the way that she does because she is Irish. She has listened to a lot of other different influences as well. She hears hip-hop music, she knew punk music, she knew rock and roll music. We all grew up with these different sorts of music. But the heart and the words and the interpretation of the words are intrinsically Irish.
With traditional music, the reason it existed in the first place, and the origins of all music also, was the passing of information, the telling of stories. Ireland has a very, very troubled history. It had a shitty time, you know what I mean? And it told about it and it passed on information. We learnt our history and our culture through music and poetry. The bards were like the most respected people, you know what I mean?
I suppose the British presence here for 1,000 years would have had something to do with that, and the fact that for 1,000 years they tried to crush every form of Irish culture. The language, the music, the religion, poetry, everything. They attempted over a long period of time to crush it and repress it. And I suppose in its own way, that made it more important for it to stay alive. It has been determined to stay alive, and maybe that's why it has remained so strong.
Oh, once upon a time there was Irish ways and Irish laws, villages of Irish blood, awaken to the morning, awaken to the morning. Then the Vikings came around, turned us up and turned us down, started building boats and towns. They tried to change our living, tried to change our living. Cromwell and the soldiers came, started centuries of shame, but they could not make us turn. We are a river flowing, we're a river flowing.
There's a book by Frank O'Connor called The Backward Look, in which he traces the influence of the past on Irish expression. And I think this can be divided into two parts, as it were, history and mythology. Irish history is a turbulent affair. It's also an ongoing affair. Right from the beginning, Irish history has been marked by a good deal of violence, of sporadic rebellion and systematic oppression. The second one would, of course, be Irish mythology, which is an older mythology than the mythology of Greece, and has some of the most powerful men and women imaginable in it. And it's perhaps this that has filtered through most of all into the songs and poems of Irish artists.
Almost despite ourselves, there's something about us which you might call Irish. I don't know what that is. Maybe just the notes you would choose, or the words you would choose. I think language, for instance, using words for almost their sound as well as their sense, and the colour and rhythm of language. I think that's something that's Irish. The abuse of the English language, you might call it.
Raymond walked with my nose down on wet grass. Raymond full of senses on nature's bright green shady path. Raymond know what I am. Raymond got hug a brown with sweet wine. We drank the silver ritual. We will drink the wine and break the bread. Raymond, let him not go around. Raymond, Mr. Russell, Raymond, Mr. Yates. Raymond down through the Holy Rosy Cross. Raymond down through the Theosophy and the Golden Dawn. Raymond through the writing profession. Raymond, Raymond, Raymond.
A lot of it comes from, that tradition. I mean, whatever. I'm not really sure where it comes from. I mean, for instance, I've written songs, and I've gone through all like Irish songbooks after I've written them. I mean, I remember I wrote one song, I put a line in it, like clear, cool, crystal streams. And I picked up a book of Irish ballads, and I was looking through it, and it was a song, clear, cool, crystal streams. So I don't know. I think it's just part of this race memory or whatever.
by the sky, but it's getting hard to see. Giving it all away. Yeah, we're giving it all away. Giving it all away. Don't give it all away. And an old man told me about dolphins and people. And he said that there was killing and they were sleeping.
The Irish music is an ancient music which is now married to the rock idiom. We're from a tradition, and where a lot of people would say have a bass player, just as Peter said, a bass player would have a bass hero, you know, somebody, and would follow all sorts of bass books and bass riffs and stuff like that. We just go to the source of the tunes, of traditional tunes.
You are the sweetest angel, you are the highest flyer, I know it's true. There'll never be another quite as beautiful, quite like you.
I think that bands emanating from this country have a relationship with the music that has come from this country, whether it be traditional music, or whether it's music of the Clancy Brothers, or whether it's Seamus Ennis playing the uilleann pipes. They've heard all of these things on the radio. Sometimes it mightn't be cool to say that in the 60s or the 70s we listened to that sort of music.
There was a thing of like Irish music being quite boring, and it was sort of rammed down your throat a bit at school by the Christian Brothers or whatever, as being part of the old sort of Gaeilgeoir tradition, you know. In the same way as the Irish language was sort of rammed down people's throats to the point where they actively disliked learning it. And that was true of a great deal of Irish culture, I think, at a certain point.
Founding of Conradh na Gaeilge and Sinn Féin, the rise of the volunteers, the outbreak of the First Great War.
The image of Irish music was of something that was essentially rural, had to do a lot with wearing the black Sunday suit and a pioneer pin and being hunched over an accordion and not saying much. It was associated with Sunday afternoon and benediction and the whole shtick, the whole Blackthorn shtick, if you know what I mean. And so we were the first people who made it irreverent.
Horselips came along and made Irish music exciting for the first time. You know, Horselips got up on the stage and in their sort of ridiculous suits and all that, you know, glam rock, you know, Irish glam rock. I mean, because they, in their own way, were as exciting to people like me as T-Rex or Slade or David Bowie were in England, you know.
The second album, the one that Horselips dates from, was called The Tyne, and on The Tyne there's a line from Yeats, which was a very conscious, self-conscious attempt to tap into the things that he had dealt with and Lady Gregory had dealt with. They were up to the same sort of scam like 60, 70 years before, which was to take what are essentially a bunch of fairly scatological folk tales and turn them into a body of myth. Now, what we did was on a much smaller scale, but we were aware of all that had gone before. I think it was the first time that Irish kids could look at a sort of an indigenous music and go, that is kind of ours, nobody else can do that stuff. And we were part of a movement that bred bands like Planxty and the Bothies and eventually Moving Hearts.
There were 3 old gypsies came to our hall door. They came brave and boldly, oh. One sang high and the other sang low, and the lady sang the raggle-taggle gypsy, oh. Oh, she gave to them a glass of wine, and she gave to them some brandy, and the fine gold ring that the lady wore, oh, she gave it to the raggle-taggle gypsy, oh. Oh, then he rode east and he rode west, he rode north and south also, but when he rode to the wide open field, it was there that he spied his lady, oh. Oh, then why do you leave your house and your land? Why do you leave your money, oh? Oh, why do you leave your only with the cordon for the raggle-taggle gypsy, oh?
Going back to 1970, during the periods of my life when I've been involved in bands, Donal and I and other musicians have tried to present Irish music in a more contemporary manner. I would hope that we didn't offend the old music, because the old music is the heart of it all. And the old music is what sustains the new music. And the fact that the old music is still alive, that it's not a revival, it's a continuation. You know, it's not like in other countries where you have a folk revival, or you have... It's never died here, you see, so we don't need to revive it. A lot of the Planxty music was very, very influenced by the music of Junior Crehan. And I know for a fact that Junior and Junior's contemporaries, the real carriers of the traditional music, were always very, very happy with the way Planxty played their music.
I'll be actually 3 years in a few months' time. I'm playing about 75 years, say about 6 or 7 years old. Well, I started playing the concertina because my mother was a concertina player and a whistle player, so she taught me in both instruments. But later on I got on the violin. My mother's father was a flute player, and his father was a fiddle player, and he was make fiddle. So that's as far back as I can go. But my own family, 5, 2 boys and 3 girls, well, they all make a bit of noise, whether you call it music or not.
Traditional music has never died in the country, and people like Junior Crehan kept it alive. It's a living, breathing music. I think the fact that Junior is still around and people can go to him for source material, can get tunes from him that maybe aren't heard so often.
I was coming from country house dance, and it was a weather like this and the sun was up in the sky. I was coming to a place kind of a glen where there were little trees and the birds were singing, and there was a mist, and the mountain over was at my back, and the sun shining to the nicest picture you ever saw. So that thing put notes into my mind, and I took out the fiddle and I got 3 or 4 notes, and I paused for a while and I got more notes, and if anyone was out, that said, with the fairies. So I put it together. Then the following night I sat down and I had the few notes that I got first, and I continued from there, and I called it the mist-covered mountain because of the fog, like, you know, in the mountain. So it goes like this.
We grew up in an area which is Gaelic is our first language, and you know, my grandparents and my mother were steeped in sort of a lot of old traditional songs. And she married a guy that was in basically a show band, sort of a Cayley plus a bit of Glenn Miller. And so along with singing Gaelic songs, there were guitars and double basses and things like that, which is quite extraordinary in a place like in Donegal. The traditional songs that we used to learn when we were growing up with, there's a lot of images of places and people's names within songs. And it is an area in Donegal which is absolutely gorgeous, and there's a couple of legends attached to it as well. We tried to take in the various sort of legends. There's one that there's the sort of the one-eyed ogre, sort of that came from Tory Island, from across from Donegal, and cried sort of his poison tear fell on top of this glen, and it became Poison Glen. And then there was supposed to have been a siege during the Black and Tan Wars, that the local people poisoned the river, so that that was the way they made their escape. Sad songs are very much attached to emigration during the potato famine, and that there was just hundreds and thousands of people left, and there's thousands and thousands of songs about actually people even in the foreign countries, whether it was like in the New World, as they used to call America, and they used to write them going there. The people left behind used to write them for them. The people that were over there used to write about Ireland. So, I mean, I think there's a good mixture.
Well, of course, we had no television or radios or anything. In the night, people would gather to the house and they'd sit down, and someone would say dance a set, another one would say sing a song, and the next one would be a story. And they'd tell stories about great warriors here in Ireland long ago, the Fianna Fáil and Finn McCool and all the rest, you know. And they were very long stories. They'd keep telling them till about 11 o'clock, and then they'd see the clock, oh, we'll finish it tomorrow night. Tomorrow night would come, and they wouldn't have it finished that night till all 3 or 4 nights. Very long story. There were some great storytellers, but there isn't many of them now, except myself.
You must realise this country was electrified in the 30s. It didn't have television until the 60s. Radio as a medium was, you know, fairly new to Irish people. So all of their interaction and all of their sources of information were from each other. It was storytelling. I would go around to your house and tell you what had happened. And the songs actually grew out of that process of communication as well. We, in a certain way, got rid of our grief and got rid of our sense of loss of identity by going back to ourselves and to our roots and telling stories about ourselves to each other.
A thing that was a huge influence on me from the time I was very small was the fairy tales, the legends that you hear about Ireland, you know, like the Children of Lear, like terribly, like tragic, awful stories, you know, and look what happened to them, you know, they got turned into swans, but they made out of the fact that they were so lonesome and they were 900 years they were off in the sea in the middle of storms, but their music, the songs that they sung because of that tragedy, was the most beautiful music in all Ireland. The loss is painful and the expression of it is beautiful.
Sweet the sin, bitter the taste in my mouth. I see 7 towers, but I only see one way out. You gotta cry without weeping, talk without speaking, scream without raising your voice. You know I took the poison from the poison stream, and I floated out of here, singing
I wouldn't be I don't think I'm a very good storyteller, certainly in the traditional sense of the word. She runs through the streets with her eyes painted red under a black belly of cloud. In through a doorway, she brings to me white golden pearls stolen from the sea. She is raging, a storm blows up in her eyes. She will suffer the needle chill. She's running to standstill. It's hardly a story. I mean, but that's my version. That's how I tell stories. They're sort of psychedelic stories. I mean, they paint a picture more than tell a story.
Every minute of every day, Eagle Star opens 8 insurance policies for people all around the world. Eagle Star covers your world.
And you know you gotta go. Ride that train from Dublin up the sandy road, throwing pennies at the bridges down below, and the rain, hail, sleet and snow. Say goodbye to Madame Joy.
Do you see yourself maybe in a tradition of the Shan knows the Gaeltori, the Shanachie, all those storytellers and balladeers, and articulating the sort of common expression?
Yeah, well, I mean, I see myself as in a modern version of that lineage. Yeah, but more recently connected. I think most exiled Irish writers are in a sort of a tradition like Beckett. A lot of the stuff that he's written I can relate to very well. Especially the part about, you know, not going on but going on and all that. I mean, I've experienced that.
It's also true that, like, if that's coming out in the writing, so too is a sense of that mystical sense of spirituality. And certainly in contemporary music, Irish music, that seems very evident, that sense of spirituality. I mean, are you writing in a spiritual sense?
Well, I say so, yeah. Yeah, well, I'm trying, I think. I mean, I'm getting get sort of bits and pieces and glimpses, you know, of it, you know, and then I just try and translate that into songs.
The songs that I write are always about my own experiences. I don't ever write fictionally, and actually I think that that's the thing about Irish musicians, is that they don't. That most of the time they're writing from their own experience, like Van Morrison and all that stuff, and that's why they're so inspiring.
Each of these my 3 babies I will carry with me. For myself I ask no one else will be mother to these 3.
What I do is, for example, 3 Babies is, everybody says, is a very sad song, but to me it isn't. It's just that it's a song about a very, very awful experience, or a series of awful experiences, which I needed to work out for myself. It's almost a form of self-learning, of learning how I operate.
I wrote a song once about delirium tremens. A song written, sadly, from experience. Oh, I dreamt a dream the other night. I couldn't sleep a wink. The rats were trying to count the sheep and I was trying to give up the drink. There was footsteps in the parlour and there was voices on the stairs. And I was climbing up the walls and I was moving round the chairs. I looked out from under the blanket and up at the fireplace. And there was the Pope and John F. Kennedy and Jack Charlton, and the 3 of them were staring me in the face. And suddenly it dawned on me, hey Christy, you're getting the old DTs. When the child of Prague began to dance around the mantelpiece. And I sang goodbye to the port and brandy, to the vodka and the stag, to the smithwick and the harpic and the bottled raft and keg. As I sat looking up at the Guinness ad, I could never figure out how your man stayed up on the surfboard after 14 pints of stout.